Hello and welcome to the Aquarium Dilemmas podcast. I'm your host, ScienceGal Aquatics. I'm Kerri, and this is my co-host,
Jesse, and welcome. Thank you for tuning in to another wonderful episode.
Yes, it's always exciting. I say that every week, but it's always exciting to go over these conversations and these topics.
Well, this one's close to our heart because we have this dilemma, this problem.
I have a lot of dilemmas, but this is one that I most definitely have. And I do kind of bring it on myself because I could help the situation. But we're going to mainly talk about algae blooms, but algae in and of itself is a topic to talk about.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
I used to hate it. Now I understand there are some benefits to algae, and you can't have a fish tank without some kind of algae.
Well, and it's actually just kind of part of nature. It means it's actually everything you're doing is technically correct.
Yeah, and it's there to help balance out something that's not balanced. So it's there in theory and thought to help, but it's just really unsightly, and some people hate it. I've learned to embrace it. Some people don't mind it. It's just your preference. And there's so many different algae. Some are honestly really pretty. Some I don't like.
Well, to just kind of start into our dilemma of algae, we got an algae bloom. So
yes.
What
is it?
Exactly.
What exactly is it?
Well, from my understanding, it is a unicellular structure that can form, and it forms very, very quickly.
Yes. Very quickly. But algae's been around for a very long time. It's been around for I don't even know how many, probably billions of years, but it's definitely been around for a while. And it really helps produce a lot of oxygen. It produces a lot of oxygen, and a lot of the oxygen that's in our atmosphere is because of algae. So it's beneficial, but like what exactly, when you say algae, there's a lot of different algae that can be clumped in that one definition of algae. But like you said, you can have complex or simple, or like you said, unicellular. I can't ever say it. And with the type that with an algae bloom, it's photosynthetic. So it's going to feed and use that light as energy.
And that makes sense. And we can just hit on like a few algae that are common in the aquarium hobby.
Well, the ones I know are the ones that I have seen in my tanks. And even some of the ones I've seen in my tanks, I don't necessarily know what kind of algae it is. But there's, like I said, there's all different types. And it's an organism, so it can be kind of on its own, where it's just by itself. It's not attached to anything. It's just floating in your water column. It's teeny tiny. And then they can build colonies, or they can build a structure that's fibrous, where I think of hair algae type, where it's stringy.
Yep. And that's where you get, if you read about it.
And like blue-green algae is clumped as an algae. It's not even an algae. It's a bacteria. And it's a little different, like I said, because it is a bacteria. But the ones that I know are the ones that I have in my tanks. And the algae I see the most is hair algae. By far.
Yeah. And
by far.
And when you read about, or if you were to do any research or anything about this topic of algae, they consider algae plant-like.
Yeah,
it's not a plant, but it is plant-like.
I get confused because even in my biology classes in the past, like it's, like you said, it's plant-like, but I feel like algae came first.
Well,
algae is a little older.
They call it plant-like because algae can cluster together and form a structure.
Yes.
It is not an actual cellular structure like a plant, but it is a structure that we can physically see.
It's, what is it called? Protista is how,
Yes.
it's like the
The
kingdom that it comes from. And it doesn't have, algae doesn't have leaves. It doesn't have a vascular structure. It doesn't have roots. So, and there's no common ancestor when it comes to algae either. And I think that's why a lot of people have trouble kind of tracing it back, I assume, because there's no common ancestor when it comes to algae. They're different. But for the sake of fish tanks and algae blooms, it's a green algae.
Yep.
And that means it's photosynthetic, like photoplankton. It's kind of a broad term to include of a lot of different things, but it's little microscopic organisms that use photosynthesis.
Yep, little single-celled organisms.
And it's an autotroph because it produces its own food, so it can sustain itself. So that's why it grows quickly.
Well, and since we're on the topic of algae bloom, because it falls in there, because people will...
It gets really confusing. It took me a long time to understand. I still...
people will drop this in there. Green water. Green water is considered an algae bloom because you just kind of touch the iceberg there.
I find it funny because you'll talk to people that are like, how do you make green water? I really want green water. And then you talk to other people who are like, I want this gone. How do you get rid of it? I don't like it. It's a drastic, you either hate it or you like it. There's no...
Well, there's... it's
kind of a side topic, but
the
I find it
algae
kind of...
bloom and the green water...
That's what I associate as algae blooms, is green water.
We can give the good and bad side then of green water. Green water, it's full of phytoplankton.
Well, even going back even further, like more basic, I guess, an algae bloom is green. You walk in and you see green, and it's cloudy and green. That's how I indicate an algae bloom. Where last time we were talking about bacterial blooms that are more of a milky color. This is, like you said, green water. It's a green color,
and that
haze.
That is caused by the photosynthesis of these single-celled organisms producing their own food, basically. They're producing their own food. They're eating out of your water column.
Yes.
They're eating everything that's in your water because there's an excess of some sort of nutrient that your plant did not get all of, and they can reproduce at a rapid rate.
Yes. And like you said, you have an overabundance of nutrients.
Yes.
And I think of what we're talking about, particularly like green water, is probably some kind of phosphate.
And iron.
But mainly it could be anything. I mean, a tinge of this or a little bit of this. There's so many factors when it comes to keeping your tank perfectly balanced. But for the sake of green water, I think of too much light and too much phosphate.
And light is the number one key to kickstart the whole cycle.
It is, like we keep saying, it is it uses photosynthesis. It's photosynthetic.
It is, that's correct.
But it breathes in, the light's on, so it's taking in carbon dioxide. And it's producing oxygen. But it's also, the food source is a carbohydrate, a sugar, cellulose, I believe. And it's used as energy, but cell structure, I think of kind of like the wall of the algae. And that's what it's using to keep the process going, is photosynthesis. But to break it down, it's on super simple terms, it's using CO2 and water.
Yep.
And producing oxygen and carbohydrate, sugar,
Yep.
cellulose, I believe is how you pronounce it.
Yeah, and it is feeding on that. It is using that to
And the green-
reproduce
yeah,
again
and
and
the
again and
green-
again and again.
I believe it's cytoplasm, and then it produces the chlorophyll, and that's the green color inside,
Yes.
if I remember right.
That's what causes that green
That
tinge.
green color. But with the algae blooms, like to get phosphate in your water, I think of overfeeding because it's in fish food. It can be in the fertilizers.
Oh yeah, there's lots of phosphates.
It can be in your
irons.
tap water. It can be in a lot of different things. And the plants do use it. I have live plants in my aquariums, and the plants do use it, but they don't need as much as I'm giving them, and the algae will use that as it's eating it.
Yeah, oh yeah, it's a jump start, and your
Yeah.
plants are also decomposing, and algae loves to start to attach to anything that is decomposing to really kick off that jump start that cycle of reproducing itself.
Yeah. But for the algae bloom's sake, it's single, and it's photosynthetic, and it's in your water column. And I know some people have told me that it breeds and it comes from your substrate, but it's in your water column too. It's everywhere. But and some people really, really love green water because of all of the food that comes with it. In nature, the phytoplankton, you can't have a whale, like a shark or a whale or some kind of huge predator without these tiny little microorganisms, because it's the start of the food web. Those are what's getting eaten up by the smaller fish and the meat, and then they get eaten and then they get eaten. But you can't have all of that without these tiny little things.
Yep.
It's very important. So,
And usually people that want green water, like green water, enjoy green water, is because
it has all this, I guess what you're getting ready to say, I interrupted, but it has all this extra, just microscopic yumminess of food that's just in abundance that we can't even see.
Yep, it's a food source for baby fry.
Yes.
For your baby fish, if you are breeding fish or are in the habit of letting your fish reproduce, let's just say you let your fish reproduce, the best food for them is Mother Nature's food. The food that we cannot see, that is in that water column, that's those microorganisms, and that's why some people crave green water. They want
if
it.
they have some kind of hard to grow out fry that is so small that they can't even eat brine shrimp or something like that. Whereas my guppy fry, they're okay with first bites. They do great with that. But it's like the rice fish I kept outside. The numbers I got of fry and the amount that successfully grew out and the coloration, I just couldn't duplicate inside in the fish room. And it's that green water, all that just microscopic yumminess that they just eat up, that you can't even see it. And that's why I feel like a lot of people do want green water, whereas someone that wants just to have a living room tank that's set up and it's a showcase, and then they have that one aquarium, I can see why they don't necessarily want a green algae in their water. And you come over and you're like, look at my lovely fish in here, and you're like, I can't see them because it's so green. And I can see why you don't want that, but it is a fine balance between algae and bacteria and all these microscopic organisms that I probably don't even fully understand or even know about fully yet, that you don't even see, that play a pivotal role in the balancing of your tank. And if one thing's just a little bit off, it can swing it.
It'll start a chain reaction. The easiest way for me to explain it to a new hobbyist or even an experienced hobbyist is, to me, the whole parameters of your glass box full of water, any major swing one way or another can set off a chain reaction.
Well, and it's not even a major swing. It can be a tiny swing. Like, I overfed my fish one time, and all of a sudden the next day something came up and I had to go out of town for a couple of days. And when I got back, my tank was green. And it wasn't even a huge fluctuation in anything, but it was a tiny little thing. Or you went out of town and your friend came over and fed your fish. Or maybe you went to the fish store spontaneously and there's a whole bunch of fish that you just fell in love with and you wanted to come home and add them to your tank. So you added a whole bunch of fish to your tank. It could be all kinds of different things. You missed a water change 1 week. Just completely, something happened, life happened, and you completely missed a water change.
Or you don't have your light on a timer and you left your light on for 3 days in a row.
My biggest thing, and it's so easy to fix, is I need to turn my light off. But not only turn your light off, but keep it on a regular schedule. And one of the things that I kind of I don't even know, it's a mistake, but I don't know how to describe it, is I went through a phase where I didn't really care about my light. I had something on it. I didn't have live plants at the time. It worked. My tank looked good. Then I fell into live plants and I started getting all these plants, and I decided that I wanted the brightest, biggest, quadruple fanciest light there is, that is 6,000 lumens on a 20-gallon tank. That was, yes, it was well lit. It was 4 plants, but it was way too much light too.
Yep, so you set off the algae bloom unknowingly.
And then I didn't understand that. I knew that active soil or active substrate was what plants needed, but I was so excited. I didn't really understand, and I still don't fully understand, like, all the nutrients. But I would add only active substrate. I would never turn off my lights. I was new to live plants, so I didn't have a lot of plants. I had plants, but not a whole lot of them. And I did have fish. They weren't producing a lot of waste, but I was overfeeding them. Not to the extent I once was, but I was still overfeeding them. And that is set up for a mess.
Set up for an algae bloom is what it's set up for. You just gave algae the two things it needs to get kick-started. Lots of light. And excess nutrients.
And that right there. And you see, I go to these shows now, like Aquashella and things like that, and you see these beautifully, and in pictures and things like that, these beautifully immaculate aquascaped tanks with nothing, not a stitch of algae on the tanks. And I'm a very low tech. I know, like, the gist of CO2, but I don't put CO2 on my tanks. And these high-tech CO2 tanks with these really fancy lights, with all of these beautiful plants, and I would just look back and I would get really, like, down on myself because, one, I am not that talented to put, like, I would just, my aquascaping skills came to, I would try, and then in the end it would just go where it went. I tried, but then just how it was set up and thought out, it was so beautiful, and I would get really frustrated because even if it was my best attempt to recreate that, I didn't understand why mine was a mess and theirs was not. And they do have very small fish. Usually it's a neon tetra or something, very small bioload. But they don't want a lot of excess nutrients, a lot of phosphates. They don't want that in those aquascape tanks. And where I would come home, I would kind of understand a little bit of it, but I didn't understand why I would have this just mess. And I still, like I said, I still have a lot to learn, but I understand a little bit more now why I do have the problem I was having. And my tanks are slowly they look a lot better. I still have issues here and there, but not like it was just to the point where I had so much algae, you couldn't see anything. The fish were doing great. I will have to say, and I'm sure we'll go more into it, an algae bloom doesn't necessarily do anything harmful to your fish, but they do get oxygen deprived.
Yes, they can.
They can. And when you see them gasping at the surface, you can add just an air stone or something to the tank, but that, I'm sure you'll lead into it a little bit more, but there's a reason behind that. But I feel like that's the biggest issue when it comes to algae blooms, is just the lack of oxygen.
Yes. Besides algae, for all intensive purposes, it's unsightly.
Yes.
People want to know how to get rid of it. That's like a common, you can look it up, search it. There's like tons of different theories, ways of getting rid of it. And in my opinion, a little bit of algae in your tank is a sign that your tank is doing well. Now, a lot of algae, that you might want to combat that a little bit. And you have to look at it at both sides of the coin. Do your fish like it? I know our shrimp tanks absolutely enjoy it. They feed all over the hair algae. They're moving up through it, picking, cleaning, working, just nonstop. We're going into the algae and the unsightly and the getting rid of it. That is where you get into this oxygen deprived state that you're leading into.
Yeah. And I feel like you cannot have a fish tank that's completely just always algae free. I feel like there's always going to be a little bit in there somewhere. And that, like you said, it's a sign of your nature just helping balance things out. And whether you keep a little bit or you want a little bit more, you can, as you research and get to know your tank, you can kind of figure out through a process of elimination, maybe I have too much of this, or maybe I need to up this. But my main focus now, since I have so many live plants, is my first priority is my plants. And I don't mind having so much algae. And like, I make it sound horrible. It's not as bad as it once was by any means. But some of the remedies for combat, like fixing algae, I'm not going to sacrifice my plants. I'm okay with a little bit of algae and having healthy plants than just eradicating everything to get rid of the algae. And it's wherever you're comfortable on that scale of things, I guess.
Well, the key to know is you got to understand your plants are feeding off the same nutrients that the algae also feeds off of. So for you to get rid of the algae, you're going to shock and hurt your plants as well.
Yeah, because they both like the same food. They really do.
And they're both actually producing, as we said earlier, they're both producing oxygen. So in order for you to get rid of your algae problem, you can pull out as much of it as you can. You can wipe your glass down. You can do all that. The keys to getting rid of it, if you're wanting that pristine tank, is you are going to shock your live plants. If there's no plants in there, that's fine too.
Well, I feel like there's ways you can do it that's not going to completely shock them. But if you have an active algae bloom, the thing that you want to remove is probably the main source of energy, what it's feeding on, and that's light.
Yep. Start with light.
Plants like light, but if you're going to completely black out your tank, because it is, like we said, photosynthetic, so it's going to use that light, and you take the light out of it, you got to do it completely. Just a little bit of light in your room can make algae grow, so you got to completely cover it up in some aspect. And I've heard a week, I've heard a couple of days, and that your plants, depending on your plant, I have a lot of the easier plants in my fish room. They can handle it. They're not going to like it, but they could handle it. But more sensitive, higher end plants, I could see where they might not like it at all.
And then to touch base on the fish that are not going to like it, because when you do that, algae goes into, and the plants do the same thing the algae do. Instead of photosynthesis, they go into the respiratory phase.
Yeah, respiration.
Then
it's like photosynthesis, but backwards, for lack of a better way of putting it.
Well, that's the easiest way to explain it. It's backwards. So then the algae actually starts consuming the oxygen in your water column.
Yes.
So you are going to drastically take that percentage of oxygen that's in your water column. So instead of just, let's say, whatever kind of filtration that you have on the tank, and that's putting some oxygen back into the water, you might have to add a air stone to that tank because you, by blacking this tank out, you're kicking the plants and the algae into overdrive of, okay, I have no light now. Now they're going to start eating that oxygen, and that's going to drastically change the levels in your tank of your saturated oxygen in your water.
Yeah, it's going to, whereas before it took in CO2 and produced oxygen, it's going to take oxygen and produce CO2.
Yes.
And that's where you can see your fish can suffocate because your algae is not using that light. It's using that oxygen. So it's competing against the fish are competing for the oxygen against the algae. And then your other plants. And then it produces
and that's
carbon dioxide. So then, like, let's say you've got bacteria, you naturally have bacteria in your tank too, your nitrifying bacteria that needs oxygen. So everything's competing for that oxygen, and you will only have so much dissolved oxygen in your water for all of that. So that's why your fish can suffocate in your aquarium during these algae blooms. So, because usually the first thing they say, which me too, is turn your light, turn it off, turn your light off. And yeah, you don't have to worry about the photosynthesis happening, but there's still respiration. It's still going to try to use something to produce its food to keep growing. And there's some things like the live bears in my fish room, they pick at algae a lot more than my silver arrow one upstairs. It doesn't care about algae. And like the koi fish outside, they pick on algae. And there's algae eaters in the shrimp. There's certain things that you can put in your tank that will help you out.
Yeah, will help
that will kind of feed on it. But to just help yourself out for the sake of algae blooms, which is, like we said, an organism that's photosynthetic, that's in your water column, that's free swimming around, it's not attached to anything, it does promote a good food source, a good healthy food source for your fish and baby fry and all that stuff too. But it can block, if it's super cloudy and it's really green, it can block the light from the plants at the lower levels of your tank too. Yep. That might be something. It could get so thick but it could over time, it's going to dissolve because it's going to run out. You're naturally, I wouldn't say naturally going to completely run out, but it's over time going to run out of nutrients.
It's going to slow down.
It's going to slow down. It's not going to have that, especially if you lay off the light, you lay off the food, and depending on the circumstance, sometimes continuing to fertilize is the best thing. You have to kind of play around with what works, but that helps me. And that will kind of slow down and it'll slowly just kind of run out. But let's say now my algae bloom, it's cleared up and all that algae's down at the bottom of the tank. That's just, I don't even know how to explain, just a really good, healthy, yummy food source for the bacteria. So you fixed your algae bloom.
Now you're going to have
you got your bacteria bloom. So during this stage, I do recommend water changes, but you might not just do water changes in the sense of you're taking water out, but gravel vac and find some organic matter, some old food or something that might be feeding that, and just give it a good gravel vac too, because I feel like that would help.
You gravel vac, you try to pull that, you're going to try to pull all that hair algae out you can, your water may still be green, may not be green. You're going to keep your lights off. And when that algae starts to die, yes, you need to do exactly what you said. Gravel vac it out, get it out, get it out any way you can, because otherwise that little bit of a change, then you're going to start into a bacteria bloom of some sort. Because
like we said earlier, your plants and the algae, they're competing for the same food source. They want nutrients, they want nitrates, they want nitrites, they want that ammonia, they want that. But the algae, I feel like, is just really quicker at utilizing that stuff to reproduce faster.
They do. That's why you said it earlier. That's why you can turn around over a weekend and it's
always just overnight, like
one thing, and come back and go, wow, where did all this hair algae come from? Or why is my entire tank green now?
And a lot of those fertilizers too have, I say a lot, I don't know the number, and I assume it's a lot, but they're fertilizing plants. It's a plant fertilizer. So what's in it? It's
lots of phosphates, lots of iron.
I wouldn't say it's a lot of it, but it's definitely in there. It's going to have nitrates. It's probably going to have some kind of phosphates at some point. It's going to have, then there's specialty ones like just iron and things like that you can get. But
because certain plants require more of a certain nutrient.
Yes, and it's way over my head. Each one requires different things, but it's the same food source as the algae. So if your plants aren't quick to absorb that, the algae will. If it's a slow growing plant, it's probably going to get outcompeted for nutrients over inherit because it's a slower. So if you're having, like right now or in the past, there's a couple tanks that I could probably put some water Sprite or some water wisteria in there that just floated on the top, and it's a really fast absorbing plant, so it might not completely outcompete the algae, but it's gonna be more apt to absorb that over something that's a slower growing plant, if you get my point.
Absolutely. No, absolutely. I mean, we got a lot of the what are they? The Anubises.
I've got a lot of plants, and a lot of plants I don't really know even what they are anymore. But I know the water wisteria, the water Sprite in the past, guppy grass.
But a lot of your lower light, slow growing plants, and that's the thing.
Hornwort.
How heavily planted is the tank? And if it's just a brand new tank and you're just trying to grow these plants, they are going to be a little bit susceptible from that change, and you're trying to get them growing and you're trying to give them nutrients. Well, they're trying to absorb it, but they're not going to be able to absorb it as fast as that algae can go. Oh, look at all this excess nutrients that I can have. And you're trying to get these plants to grow, so you're probably leaving the light on a little bit longer.
Well, and not only that, sometimes plants, they go through like a wilting phase, so some of it will die.
Yep. And
or some of it will grow, and that will kind of feed it. So, and there's different, I know with certain substrates, when I newly set up a tank with a little bit more sand in it, I had more diatom type algae, and that's, I believe, a brown algae, but it's a little bit different, but it feeds on silicates in the water. And that was, you see it on the glass. It's like brown and kind of splotchy on the sand.
Almost a kind of like a little star type formation.
Yeah, you see it on it's pretty quick to start. But my dad always told me growing up, he's like, don't ever put anything in the tank till you see algae grow, because your tank can't keep anything alive unless it can make something grow. And I always was like, whatever. But as I get older and more experienced in fish keeping and I research it a little bit more, I'm like, that really is a really true statement. That really is true. But algae's not so much just an enemy like it was. I would see algae and I'd take everything out and scrub it down, and then I would kill my cycle, but I didn't even know what a cycle was at the time. And it was just, I've learned to know that algae's there to help me. I might not like it, but it's showing me a sign that something's a little out of whack. The fish enjoy it. Some of the fish I never got to breed will breed now when they're in a little bit of some algae.
Or green water.
Or some green water. The shrimp, absolutely, they're always picking at it. And I've learned to not hate it, but I don't necessarily want a green water tank inside. Outside the ponds, I love it. I want all of my ponds, everything out there is green water as quickly as I can. I love it. But inside, I don't necessarily want an algae bloom in my tanks. And when I do have one, it usually comes down to that particular algae where it's in your water column. It's green, is coming from phosphates, which is from waste, too much food, possibly your tap water, if your fertilizers,
too many botanicals, even if you added too many botanicals.
Yeah, it's there. And then with the light, I leave my lights on too long, so it's just that's where it's coming from. And you can turn your lights off and don't feed and let it sit for a while, and then when the algae starts to go back, do a good water change, aquarium vac, maybe every other day, a little bit every day until it kind of subsides.
Yep, try to get all that decomposing material out.
And if you get a bacteria bloom after that, know that you just need to keep getting that out of your water. That's probably where that's stemming from, but just know it's not necessarily bad. If you do see your fish gasping at the surface, just go ahead and add an air stone.
Yes.
And
because that means your algae is in overdrive and it is actually dying. Mm-hmm. And it is taking that dissolved oxygen out of your water, trying to survive. So all you need to do is keep the lights off. Go ahead, add an air stone so that your fish are still fine, and continue with keeping them lights off and feeding less.
Oh, a side note, snails. If you're overfeeding, another sign that you're overfeeding too is snails. And usually I have a lot of snails in my tank, and sometimes if I have an explosion, that's a sign that I need to back off on the food. That's just kind of a side note, but I guess
that's a good little tip or trick. If you have snails and then you all of a sudden see a really abundance of snails in your tank, you know that there's excess nutrients going on there.
I guess it just kind of comes down to knowing what it is, and just know that it's photosynthetic. It uses photosynthesis, and algae really likes nutrients and light, no matter really what kind it is. That's really what it likes, light and a lot of nutrients. So if you're having problems with algae, pretty much no matter what kind it is, know that that's where it's stemming from, and you're going to have to play around, research, know your tank, fiddle, experiment until it kind of clears up a little bit.
And there's lots of different ways. They make chemicals on the market that you can use.
I just don't recommend chemicals.
And there's even, for the plants, there's the peroxide method to get the algae off your plants.
Yeah, for spot treatment. That I would, if you're comfortable with doing that, I feel like that works. But I just don't recommend, I don't have good luck when it comes to the different, I think they're algicides. I would almost just stop feeding and turn off my lights and let it
they literally speed up the process of what we just talked about. They starve the algae immediately, and then that is what's pulling that oxygen out of your water. But they're doing it chemically, and that's why you need to put the air stone in there. Otherwise, you'll have the gasping fish.
Yeah. So I hope this helps. I hope at the end of the day, this kind of was like maybe you had a moment us discussing the topic a little bit. But I know that algae, it's something that you're just got to embrace as a fish keeper. There's different ways to kind of keep it at bay and know that it's your friend. It's not necessarily your foe. It's not evil. It's not there to kill your fish. It's not awful. So
no, it just is unsightly. The easiest terms, it's unsightly. No one likes it in a showpiece tank. You want to be able to display those plants, display those fish.
Yeah, and go to the fish store and experiment and see maybe there's a couple different species of fish out there that really enjoy helping you out on the algae control. And if you have a little bit pop up here and there, then like the guppies and mollies and platies, and angelfish too, they really enjoy it. And there's so many different fish that enjoy that type of algae. Some, they don't eat. I know blackbeard algae and things like that. The blue-green algae, which is a bacteria, they don't necessarily all eat. But just know that it's not as bad as I thought it was.
And it is a very simple thing to combat and minimalize. You can do a lot of stuff about it and just slow it down with less food, less light.
Yeah. So thank you so much for listening to this podcast. I hope this really did help you. And if you would like to watch this podcast, go ahead and check out ScienceGal Aquatics on YouTube. The membership page is where you can watch this. So thank you so much. And until next time, thank you for listening.
Yep. Thank you for tuning in. If you have any dilemmas, you can also email us at sciencegalaquatics@gmail.com.
Thank you. Bye.